A reading from the prophet Jeremiah. At that time it will be said to this people and to Jerusalem, a hot wind comes from me out of the bare heights in the desert towards my poor people, not to winnow or cleanse, a wind too strong for that. Now it is I who speak in judgment against them. For my people are foolish, they do not know me. They are stupid children. They have no understanding. They are skilled in doing evil, but do not know how to do good. I looked on the earth, and lo, it was waste and void, and to the heavens, and they had no light. I looked on the mountains, and lo, they were quaking, and all the hills moved to and fro. I looked, and lo, there was no one at all, and all the birds of the air had fled. I looked, and lo, the fruitful land was a desert, and all its cities were laid in ruins. Before Yahweh, before fierce anger. For thus says Yahweh, the whole land shall be a desolation, yet I will not make a full end. Because of this, the earth shall mourn, and the heavens above grow black. For I have spoken, I have purposed, I have not relented, nor will I turn back. For the wisdom and warning of the Hebrew prophets, we give thanks.
The pain and the gloom of the prophet Jeremiah is clear in this text. Barbara even asked me to provide a less gloomy reading. Jerusalem is facing a great threat. The prophet uses the graphic imagery of earth being nothing but waste and void. The birds have fled. Fruitful land is now a desert. For the prophet, these are metaphors of a pending emergency, foreign invasion. 2,500 years later, the images are not metaphors for earth, but a growing and grim reality. The scriptures do not offer us solutions to the climate emergency. That is our responsibility as people of faith and as citizens. Central to our response is to listen carefully to the many voices of creation and to listen carefully to different traditions, including those of First Peoples.
So at the beginning, I was supposed to say, so we reflect on the generous wisdom and love and humanity as held in the Dreamtime traditions of Aboriginal spiritual beliefs, and the existence of Mother Earth and Father Sky, the waterways, natural life forms such as animals and us humans. And we pay tribute to all First Nations peoples of this country, in Australia and around the world. We demonstrate the commitment to support cultural responsive practices, and I think this is part of what we're going to be doing today, is learning about Dadirri, which is not my language group, but gan'na is, and I'll be speaking on that, and behaviours by providing opportunities for all peoples to develop understanding and respect for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, history, peoples, their peoples, cultures and language. Thank you for taking that in. So now we're going to have a number of people that are going to talk about Dadirri. So Dadirri's actually come from Northern Territory, the Daly River area. And I want you to get a feel, because there's a lot of information out about Dadirri, but I can't speak on it because that's not my language group. So when I did my PhD, I actually embedded gan'na, and we will talk more about gan'na, but with reflection to Dadirri. So I'm going to ask Jolyon.
Dadirri, a special quality, a unique gift of the Aboriginal people. It's an inner, deep listening and quiet, still awareness. Dadirri recognises the deep spring that is inside us. It is something like what we call contemplation.
Thanks. The contemplative way of Dadirri spreads over our whole life. It renews us and brings us peace. It makes us feel whole again. In our Aboriginal way, we learn to listen from our earliest times. We could not live good and useful lives unless we listened.
We are not threatened by silence. We are completely at home in it. Our Aboriginal way has taught us to be still and wait. We do not try to hurry things up. We let them follow their natural course, like the seasons. We watch the moon in each of its phases. We wait for the rain to fill our rivers and water our thirsty earth.
When twilight comes, we prepare for the night. At dawn, we rise with the sun. We watch our bush foods and wait for them to open before we gather them. We wait for our young people as they grow, stage by stage, through their initiation ceremonies. When a relation dies, we wait for a long time with the sorrow.
We own our grief and allow it to heal slowly. We wait for the right time for our ceremonies and meetings. The right people must be present. Careful preparations must be made. We don't mind waiting because we want things to be done with care. Sometimes many hours will be spent on painting the body before an important ceremony.
We don't worry. We know that in time and in the spirit of Dadirri, that deep listening and quiet stillness, the way will become clear.
We are like the tree standing in the middle of a bushfire sweeping the timber. The leaves are scorched and the tough bark is scarred and burnt. But inside the tree, the sap is still flowing, and under the ground, the roots are still strong. Like that tree, we have endured the flames and we still have the power to be reborn.
Our people are used to the struggle and the long waiting. We still wait for the European settlers to understand us better. We ourselves have spent many years learning about the European settlers' ways. We have learned to speak European language. We have listened to what it had to say. This learning and listening should go both ways. We are hoping people will come closer. We keep on longing for the things that we have always hoped for: respect and understanding.
We know that our European brothers and sisters carry their own particular burdens. We believe that if they let us come to them, if they open up their minds and hearts to us, we may lighten their burdens. There is a struggle for us, but we have not lost our spirit of Dadirri.
So there are deep springs within each of us. Within the deep springs, which is the very spring, is a sound. The sound of deep calling deep. The time for rebirth is now. If our culture is alive and strong and respected, it will grow. It will not die, and our spirit will not die. I believe that the spirit of Dadirri that we have offered will blossom and grow, not just within ourselves, but for the whole nation. So it's quite a powerful way of introducing a concept that may be alienating for most of you in the congregation, but many of you understand it deeply. And we rejoice in that, because that's what it's all about. It's about connection. And when I was putting this together with Warren, beautiful Warren, I don't know how you put up with me, but anyway, you did. But we talked about connection all the time. So these are the different words in the different language groups that this concept right across our nation applies to. And Bundjalung is one of my nation, one of our nations. So gan'na is a word, and it's from the Bundjalung Nation of North Coast, New South Wales. It is best described as an Aboriginal way of being. It is linked to nature and the affiliation to land as sacred. It brings people together with a strong sense of community and to living on land or country. So gan'na refers to listen to self, to others, and to the country as a whole. So similar to the philosophy and practices of Dadirri from the northern Australia, gan'na is a way of life. And I'll give you an example what that means to me. So it's a skill to be developed. It's hard to explain and apply. It gives respect and deep to how I engage and I connect. So for many Aboriginal people growing up, learning is embedded in everyday activity, such as understanding the weather changes. So for example, as a child, my mother, many of you may know, Joyce Clague, a little bit of a rebel, lucky she's not here, she can't tell me off, but she explained to me how to observe nature and look for telltale signs as the activity of ants. When they are in a hurry, they're getting their nest ready for rain. And so then that's an indication that the weather's going to change. And it's funny how you pass that on to your next generation and then the next. So I'm very proud to say I'm a grandmother now of 1 year. But so when my girls were growing up and I was taking them to school, I noticed that their spatial look at the world was very broad. They'd noticed the plane in the sky, but they'd also noticed the scattering of the ants as they were busily getting their nest ready. So that's that learning. You get them to notice that these are really important things about connection. So gathering information by quietly observing, hearing the spoken words of all, getting a feel for what is felt, and by thinking deeply. Reflecting in order to understand the meaning of what was happening in your environment. So as Judy Atkinson has talked about gan'na as a shared experience, she says, is willing to listen to, share with you, as you listen to, share with me. Our shared experiences may be different, but in the deep listening to and quiet, still awareness of each other, we can learn and grow together. In this, we create community, and our shared knowledge and wisdom are expanded from our communication with each other. So gan'na creates respect for oneself, to take the time to just listen. Using awareness of being and reflecting in action. Gan'na approach is about listening, feeling, thinking, and understanding. And when I did my PhD, I actually embedded gan'na as also using your 5 senses. So the earth, we can feel under our feet. So when I was doing the school gardens with the young kids, we'd feel the earth under our feet, and we're in the garden. Then we'd give them, and I don't know, Jolyon, is the basket of goodies? Can we share that? So if you could take, this is from my garden. I didn't bring my soil, but I brought you some little bits from my garden to do with mint and parsley. So if you'd like to take either one or both, and just enjoy the taste and the memories those sensations bring to you as you nibble on the mint or the parsley. So I'll just keep reading while you do that activity. So gan'na, its deepest level, is the search for understanding and meaning. It is listening and learning at its most profound level. More than just listening by your ears, it's actually listening by your heart and from your heart. So fundamentally to gan'na is the essence of personal and social interaction, interrelationship between the past, the present, and the future. And that will happen when you may be eating the mint or the parsley. You might think of, when I eat mint, I think of the non-cocktail drink that my daughter made. Did you understand the non-alcoholic bit? Yeah. And that in future we might make something different next time. So it's bringing those situations or places to a spiritual, and it's also about indigeneity. So applying gan'na allows knowledge and consideration of the community by connecting to the unique nature that each individual brings to the community, as in this case, our beautiful congregation here, and also those on Zoom. The sharing of the soil and the connection to land, interrelation to the participations in sharing their stories with honesty, told through their individual storytelling. It's about encouraging observation in the silence and quietness and stillness. As we sit in silence to reflect, it's aimed at listening with not only our ears, but also being aware of the feelings, thinkings, and understandings. And it's considering the reflective way we can see and hear around us with an open mind, It's about building what I have learnt from the interaction with the services, from listening, learning, through the prior knowledge and respective responsiveness. It's about encouraging being mindfulness and encouraging action with responsibility to what we have heard, observed and learnt through our 5 senses, by touching the soil, smelling the incenses. So I don't know if you can smell the incenses, but I did put some incenses on. Seeing what is around us, observing, listening to nature, and taking a moment to taste what is in your envelope. So I was going to tell you a story, but I don't think we have enough time. So this story explores my connection to gan'na. So in 1996, I was studying at Macquarie Uni as a postgraduate student in audiology. The first semester, I failed all my exams. I had to explain why I should be given a second chance at the exams. And I really fought intensely, and it must be my mother's nature coming into me, to stay in the course, trying hard not to bring up the facts that I was a single mum on ab study and working as well, which all contributed to the situation. The university did allow me to sit the exams, the second lot of exams, and I had to attend all lectures and tutorials while studying. This is when I realised I had to change my study techniques to embedding gan'na. I voice recorded all my notes, lectures, listened into my spare time using a Walkman, which is actually showing how old I am. And at the time I started a herb garden with my daughter, and I realised that I knew that it gave us fresh herbs to eat and engaged us in using our senses of touch, taste and sight, as well as being outside, encouraging us to hear the sounds of the birds and the insects flying around us. I got through the exam and completed the course. I had to find a way that worked for me in relation to my studies, and applying gan'na gave me that ability to draw from the skills. Storytelling was part of my upbringing, so listening to stories was important. So turning my notes and lectures into something akin to this and transferring them into audio cues and prompts to remind me that there was an important knowledge to be retained and not a surprise step to take. So secondly, the activity of being in the garden not only relaxed me, I could participate with an important person, my daughter, in an activity that took us outside, got us in touch with our senses and built on our connection to land and family, which is so important in our culture. This made me think about Henry Berson's saying, "To exist is to change is to mature is to go on creating oneself endlessly," which developed my thoughts about existence. To exist is about learning and knowledge, nurturing my spirit, and my spirit also needed to be created and connected with the people, nature, or the wider environment. And lastly, giving back to what is around me. The reciprocity leads into my connection. So gan'na, I want to thank you to all those who took part today, and may we build stronger connections.